Welcome back to Guess What Day It Is. Today, I've got updates. So this little guy is complete. If you want to see more about this turntable, check the video. So, up until a couple weeks ago, we had very few parts for this. We were missing the cover completely. We were missing the hinges. The tone arm rest was broken. All these things are very expensive and very hard to find. So really the tipping point for this project was finding the original cover, which unfortunately is just damaged beyond any kind of repair. So if we look at the back side of the cover, there's a portion where the hinge goes. With that missing piece of plastic, there's not enough structural integrity. So it is not possible to use that guy. But the hinges were there. So these hinges on eBay are like 190 bucks. So pretty cost prohibitive if you have to buy that. If you have to buy the dust cover and then find the tone arm rest. The tone arm rests, even the broken ones, go for an extreme amount of money. So I just didn't feel like that was really worth the extra time and effort unless we found a big portion of that, which was the hinges. So one thing that was pretty much impossible was to find an exact replacement on the tone arm. What I did find is something that's pretty close. So let's get the tone arm out of the way. See if I can get a better picture of that. So this is a tone arm from a Kenwood turntable. Apologize for the shaky camera work there. It's actually for a Kenwood KD 2033. The shaft diameter is the same as the original. It's pretty similar from a design standpoint. It does appear that the Kenwood has a larger tone arm because the doesn't really hold it super tight. But this is a significant upgrade from what we had on there before. So, and then one last piece of the puzzle, which is actually more important for the actual setup, is the 45 adapter. So in order to set the cartridge, you have to have that. There's a little plus sign on there that allows you to bring the tone arm over, and you line the stylus up with that plus to set the depth of the cartridge. So the adjustments that are made front to back in the housing are all set with that little guy. So that is $23. It appears to be just it's a replica. It's definitely not OE. It doesn't fit super well. I don't know if a 45 will fit on there. It's 23 bucks. No, sorry, $26. So I don't know. It's there, but it does help with the final setup. And then we have a reproduction dust cover. So the dust cover was $159. The profile is similar to the original, but not super similar. Kind of compare it a little bit. Obviously, it's not tinted. But it is much better to have that on there than that. So also this did not have a cartridge, so I went ahead and purchased a new Grado green. It's not the top of the line Grado, but I would assume someone who buys a turntable like this will probably pick a cartridge that is more similar to the vintage of the actual turntable. But I wanted to get something on there so it is usable. It actually sounds great. We've put it through the paces. Now, the depth of this cartridge is significantly different than whatever cartridge was on here before. So there were a couple adjustments that I needed to make. One would have been the height of the tone arm. There's actually a little tiny adjustment screw, which you can see behind the weight there, that allows you to move the whole entire tone arm assembly up, because what you need to do is have that tone arm to be parallel when it's hitting the record. So what you have to do is, it's not an exact measurement, but just an eyeball just to keep that straight. So along with that, we also had to adjust the stop for the arm, which also has a little tiny grub screw to make that adjustment as well. So that is it. Pretty happy with the way this turned out. A couple things that I'm not super happy with. The quality of this $26 adapter. It is what it is. The acrylic top is not perfect. There's a fairly big gap there. And matching on the other side. I understand that it's got to be pretty tough to bend that acrylic because it's one piece front to back. I bought a reproduction dust cover for my Techniques, and it is basically a solid top piece and 4 individual side pieces, so it's a little bit of a different manufacturing process. So the same gap is on the back too, so evidently as that is bent, let's see if it'll show up. That's just a byproduct of it. So another thing that was a bit of a challenge was actually the bolts that go through. One thing I like about this cover design is you have a plate that puts pressure on a larger area on that acrylic. Makes it stronger. It also just doesn't cause stress, which causes breaks and all that kind of stuff. I had to actually countersink the acrylic holes that were pre-drilled. They did match up, so that is good. Now this cover is different. Marantz had 2 different covers. One was a 4-bolt hinge, or 2 different hinge styles. One was a 4-bolt hinge and was a 2-bolt hinge like you see here. This is only made for the 2 bolts, which is perfect for us. But the acrylic is thicker, so I had to countersink the holes. Basically, I just took a larger drill bit and hogged a little material out. And I also had to get longer screws. I had to get 10 millimeter screws. These are 4 by 0.7, 4 millimeter by 0.7. So they're metric. Obviously, this being made in Japan. The only thing that I am thinking about, the rubber bumpers are missing. I'm thinking about putting some felt little pads there. Just makes me feel a bit better. So it's gonna be a short video, but this is a win. I really thought that I was just gonna sell this as is with parts. The bad thing about doing that is the turntable itself is in such good condition, it kind of breaks your heart to sell it for parts. I think with those hinges, it made it a little more financially feasible to go forward. And actually finding that tone armrest was a pretty huge deal too. So that's going to do it for this video. The next couple videos will probably be revolving around our new adventure. We're going to be selling things like this turntable, a lot of the other things that you've seen on this channel at our local antique store. So stay tuned to that. It's not going to be as much on the fixing, but come along for the ride. We'll kind of be able to see what it's like starting a new adventure like this, and we'll see what happens. So thanks again for watching. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Guess What Day It Is.